is the Bearcast, presented by Bird Culchin Ford. Bird Culchin Ford has been in Waco since 1936. Ford is the #1 selling truck in Texas 43 years running. The Bearcast is also presented by WellMed Medical Management and USMD Health System Dallas. Here's Craig Smoke and Grayson Grundhafer.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Bearcast on SicEm365.com. I'm Craig Smoke, SicEm365 radio host, also team reporter, joined as always by Grayson Grundhafer, director of broadcasting, also team and recruiting reporter for SicEm365. And we are joined by Armstrong and Jack here behind the scenes, making everything look good and sound good. And we are about to head out here in just about a few hours. I don't know when you're leaving, Grayson. I'll be leaving out early tomorrow morning because Big 12 Media Days get started up in Arlington on Wednesday and Thursday. Baylor's Day will be on Thursday, and they'll be bringing a couple of player reps along with Dave Aranda, and I'm sure Mac Rhodes and his contingent will be there as well, along with all the, big wigs and ADs and head coaches and their player reps from all 10 teams. So that is going to happen this year, unlike last year when it was shut down and shuttered along with everything else that we typically would be doing during this time of year. So Big 12 Media Days is back, Grayson, and how you doing this week?
I'm doing good. It was another kind of calm week, I guess, leading up to Big 12 Media Days, which I'm really excited for. The fact that we didn't have this a year ago, it was really tough to gauge, kind of what Baylor was going to be, kind of what the Big 12 was going to be like. And so I think it's really important to have a day like this where you kind of get a feel for the new coaches, Steve Sarkisian, what's he going to be like, Lance Leipold at Kansas, and then also getting to see Dave Aranda in that kind of setting will be really cool as well. So I'm excited about it. I think it's a good preview of what's to come during the season.
Yeah, I'm interested in checking out the Baylor stuff. I don't care about much the rest of it. It'll be interesting, I suppose, to see, just people walking around and see Lincoln Riley and, Steve Sarkisian and Lance Leipold and whatnot. But, outside of that, I'll get the Baylor stuff that they have to say. And if it was up to me, I would just go get that and be back. It would take less than a day, honestly, to cover it. But it'll be a little 2-day event, and it'll be a little bit different than normal. We're not going to have, 4 player reps per team, and I don't think it's going to be like, guy at a podium for an hour and a half sitting there because, honestly, those player booths, unless it's Sam Ehlinger or, the next great quarterback at Oklahoma, or unless you're, just some star player in your little neck of the woods, there's a lot of those guys that show up and just sit there basically at those tables after about the first 5 minutes of interviews are done. And we've seen Baylor player after Baylor player who just twiddles away on their phone for like 45 minutes while their teammate gets interviewed over and over and over, So with just 2 reps for teams, I think that'll make it probably better for the players and maybe not so much for the media. That is one drawback, is you won't have as many voices to choose from, but it'll be interesting, that's for sure. It's going to be different, but it'll be, more than what we've become accustomed to here recently.
Yeah, 2019 was really cool. I remember Colt and I, we were the two covering it for SicEm365, and we were there kind of filming the different breakout sessions. And of course, there were a lot of people around Matt Rule the entire time. There was always someone there. You didn't have a lot of one-on-one conversations, but I know Colt and I both talked to Denzel Mims for probably 30 minutes, just kind of not even filming anything, just talking to him. And I'll never forget, he said, this was the best he felt in his whole career. He was really excited about the offense, really excited about what he could do that season. And I think it was a good foretelling for what was to come. Obviously, he had an amazing year. So I'm curious if that happens again at Media Days this time around. But yeah, you're right. It won't be the same because I think there's probably going to be some social distancing involved. It's probably going to be a little more organized as opposed to being able to go and talk to the players one-on-one. I don't think you're going to have as much of that, which is a little unfortunate. But again, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I get that, though. I wouldn't want to, put players at I'm really honestly surprised they're even, bringing guys from cross country. I almost wouldn't have been shocked to have seen them do like something virtual rather than have a whole contingent of people flying in from Iowa and Kansas and, just for 16 hours of an appearance. But hey, they're opening it up, and so I'm not looking at that negatively in any way. I think that's good that they're saying, you know what, no, come on down, let's go ahead and let's party a little bit. So that's what we'll be doing starting tomorrow, and for the next couple of days, Big 12 Media Days coverage on Sikkim 365 radio and all across the website as well. And yes, Baylor's Day is Thursday. They're always the second day. They are always the second day. I don't know if there's ever been a time where they are actually on the first day. And I don't know why that is, because it seems like everybody else changes up. But they're always day 2. So day 2 they will be once again. And I guess let's start off, Grayson. We got our all Big 12 team and the preseason voting. We got the preseason voting results just from the entire media contingent last week. And no surprise that Oklahoma is the runaway favorite to win the Big 12 this year. They were not unanimous. There were, I think it was 4 or 5 people or so that picked Iowa State to win the conference, but Oklahoma was pretty much the overwhelming favorite. And I was one of those that picked Iowa State. I've explained that and my rationale for that. And it's funny to me that I've actually seen a couple people that have even questioned, like, how could you not put Oklahoma? And it's like, well, I don't know. Iowa State's supposed to be pretty good, and it's a guess. So I don't know. Seems like Oklahoma is the overwhelming favorite, but Iowa State's set up pretty dadgum well. So they're my number 1, and Oklahoma's my number 2, and I really look at them as like 1A, 1B, really.
Yeah, good for you being different. I like that. And they are set up really well. You look at the all Big 12 team, they have a lot of representation in that, as does Oklahoma. I personally picked Oklahoma to be number 1. I think it's one of the easiest routes to go. You could pick Iowa State. I don't really have a problem with that, but I've just seen time and time again, Iowa State's talent, eventually they just lose games that they really shouldn't lose. So we'll see. We'll see if that changes this year. I do have them at number 2, so not very far down the list at all. But yeah, they were picked number 2 by pretty much everyone, and Oklahoma was picked number 1 or number 2 by everyone. So I think it sounds about right at the top. Yeah,
I mean, if you don't think that Brock Purdy and Charlie Kohler and Matt Campbell and their entire O-line, and I mean, I don't think people really understand how many people are back for Iowa State, honestly. Like, I don't know. It's kind of weird to me that Oklahoma's just being viewed like, oh, well, they're just going to win it. And I understand. Look, I know Oklahoma as well as anybody, but, like, this Iowa State team, this would be the equivalent of, like, Matt Rule getting everybody back for a run to go to the Big 12 champion. That's what this is. So they're not going to be more well set up to win it than they are this year for quite some time. There's just...
Ever.
No, maybe this might be the best Iowa State team talent-wise ever. So that was my rationale, and it's going to, probably come down to a game between those two, quite honestly, very well could. So we're both going Iowa State, Oklahoma 1-2. I think pretty much everybody probably did that. Who is your 3 through 5?
Okay, so let's just go through how it was picked. So let's start there, and then we'll go through ours. But 3 through 5 was Texas at 3, Oklahoma State at 4. Not a lot of separation between those two, and then TCU at 5. All 3 of those very close in the voting that they got. So yeah, Texas, Oklahoma State, TCU. That is how the media picked 3 through 5. So do you want to give our 3 through 5, or do you want to run through the entire list first?
Yeah, let's just run through Iowa State, Texas, OU, Iowa State, Texas, Oklahoma State, TCU. That's your top 5. West Virginia, K-State, Baylor at 8, Texas Tech at 9, and Kansas with a lowly 39 points, which is the bare minimum. I mean, everybody voted them 10th. So they got the least amount of votes you could possibly get. They're the clear number 10. So that was how the media voted. I said, for me, it was Iowa State, Oklahoma, and honestly, like 3 through 8, I think you can kind of just rearrange. And I don't even know what my thought I actually ended up putting West Virginia higher than I thought I had, which was probably just a mistake on my part. But I had TCU at 3. West Virginia at 4, which I again acknowledge is higher than I thought I had put them, and I had Oklahoma State at 5. So that was my 1 through 5.
Okay, so this is interesting because I thought I was going to be an outlier. I have TCU at 3 as well. I don't know what it is about that team, but I think they're going to be really good. I like the fact that they have Max Duggan coming back. Quarterback seems to always win in the Big 12. If you have a returning quarterback, that usually bodes really well for you. I have Oklahoma State at 4, and then I have Baylor at 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know that's a huge predicting the future type deal, but I do think that Baylor's defense is going to keep them in every game. I think the schedule is so favorable this season for them that it gives them a real shot at this. And TCU and Oklahoma State get Baylor at home. And so that's a huge reason why I have them ranked ahead of them. Baylor could still lose to some teams below them, but I think it sets up well that they won't lose very many times below that number 5 spot. So, yeah, I got Baylor at 5.
Okay, so I do not have Baylor in my top 5, obviously. And with West Virginia, my thinking is they've got some pretty good weapons back. They do have a change at quarterback, but not like they had great quarterback play to begin with. Austin Kendall's now at La Tech as of last week. So that'll be something they got to figure out, but their defense should be really good again. They did lose some talent, though. What was it? Tyke Smith goes over to Georgia, and that's a huge loss. And
that's a mess.
And I didn't even think about that until after I turned this in. So that would have maybe bumped them down a notch in my book, but I still think they're going to be pretty solid.
How does that happen? The guy was
Georgia cheats.
Exactly.
Basically.
He was playing. It wasn't like he was playing.
He's their best player.
And he's from that area.
He's their best player.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes zero sense. Besides Stills, the big fella, Dante Stills, they still have. He and Tyke Smith were supposed to be awesome. Yes, they lose him. That's a big loss for sure. But I'm with you. I think they'll be good. Not number 4 good, but I do think they'll still be very competitive this year.
Yeah, and they got, they do have to go to Oklahoma. They got Tech at home. They got Iowa State at home. They got Oklahoma State at home. They got Texas at home. So I think it sets up pretty nicely for them because then your road games, you're looking at Kansas and Baylor will be a tough road game, but West Virginia's in that Baylor mix. They're in that mix. So there's the top 5. At my 6 through 10, I had Texas at 6, Baylor at 7, K-State at 8, Tech 9, Kansas 10.
So I have Texas at 6, West Virginia at 7, Kansas State at 8, Texas Tech at 9, Kansas at 10. I think Tech and Kansas are definitely the 2 worst teams in Big 12 this year. I think you can pretty much bank on it. I believe Tech will probably go ahead and mail it in by the end of the year. I don't think Matt Wells will make it through this season. I have Tech at 9. I think Kansas at 10 just because the talent just isn't there. I think that Lance Leipold will be a very good coach for them, better than they've had in recent history, but I still think they're a ways away. That they're just not there yet talent-wise. They still look like a group of 5 team.
Yeah, they are even less talented than they have been, too, because they just had a, rash of transfers, and it's just been a mess with Les Miles' exit and just the goofy stuff that's being reported left and right. It's basically a rehash of the Baylor story years ago. Is how I kind of compare it. And I made a little comment on Twitter the other day about after the latest Kansas story came out that, or that I was expecting, any day now for the Big 12 board of directors to come out and say, like, hey, we're going to withhold 25% of their income for, the foreseeable future until we do an independent investigation. And I said that not because it's like a Baylor thing or whatever. It's because, why not? Based on everything that we've read, it's not that much different in any way. And in fact, there are a lot of things being reported that are more based around fact than hearsay that are pretty damning and far more damning than anything we ever heard during the Baylor deal as far as direct coach contact and things like that. And so
but Baylor was good at football.
But Baylor was good at football, and you know what? That's the only difference. That is the only difference, really, because there's far more, like I said, public and concrete kind of stuff being thrown around with the Kansas thing than there ever was with the Baylor story. But yet, I don't know, quarantine in Kansas stinks, and so it's not as big of a deal. But point being, if they win 2 games, it's going to be a shocker, and if they win a game or 2 in the Big 12, that would really be a shocker. So just don't lose to Kansas. Don't beat that team, basically.
Right, and I know they opened the season as a 1 win. I think it was over under 1 win to start the year, and I have them winning the first game of the year, and I don't feel very confident about it. They play South Dakota. I don't know. I don't know what to think of it. I have them winning barely, but outside of that, they're not going to win many games this season, and that's the way it is. And I don't think any team in the Big 12 will lose to Kansas this year, except for maybe Texas Tech as they've done in the past. But let me ask you, Craig, I'm curious your take on this. Who is the team on your list of schools that you feel kind of the most uncomfortable about your prediction, as in you think they could end up being really good, way better than you thought or way worse than you thought?
I don't know. I mean, Baylor can be, I don't know. I think Baylor could be pretty good. So I don't know how much really I could underrate them. I don't know, honestly. I mean, everybody's kind of in my mind where they should be. I mean, maybe K-State could end up being better than I think, because I'm not expecting much out of them. So maybe I'm underrating them a little bit, and maybe I'm overrating West Virginia a little bit. So
yeah, so I'm kind of the belief that Kansas State is the team that I'm most uncomfortable predicting right now, because they were 4-1 when they had Skylar Thompson, and then they just completely collapsed when they had to play true freshman Will Howard. So I do believe getting Skylar Thompson back does give them an opportunity to have a really, really successful year. We'll see. I think Chris Kleiman is a good coach. I think they could end up higher than 8. So they're the team I'm the most iffy on my prediction. And then the other one I think is also TCU, because for me to pick them number 3, I mean, they haven't finished in the top 3 since Kenny Hill was there, I don't believe. And so that's a big prediction as well. So those two teams, I'm just I don't feel good about it. And I think it goes in line with your sentiment that teams 3 through 8 are very, very close. There's not a ton of separation in there, and it's going to come down to who wins more close games. And that's how it is pretty much every year, and I think that's how it's going to be again this year.
So there are the rankings, the preseason rankings is voted on by the media, and then the way that we voted. And that leaves, I guess, the All Big 12 team to kind of discuss the 2021 preseason All Big 12 team that came out. Not a lot of surprises on here. Spencer Rattler's your quarterback. There were a couple of Baylor guys that did make the list, and we'll kind of go over our teams, but the Baylor guys on the list included Terrell Bernard and Jalen Petrie, and that was it. 2 guys on defense make the team. Didn't even get a Treston Ebner at return man. That instead went to Phillip Brooks of Kansas State. So that was one area where I thought they could potentially get a mention, but instead it does go to Brooks. So just the 2 players on defense. How many did you have on your preseason All Big 12 team, Baylor guys?
I actually had 4.
Okay.
And I think one is not very controversial. I had Treston Ebner as the kick return, punt return guy.
So did I.
Yeah, and he was there last year. So I don't
want it.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's the returning, and in most circumstances, he'd be the easy guy to vote for, but maybe people just forgot. I don't know.
Right. So I have him there. I think he's just so dynamic in the return game. So very excited for him. I have him there. Don't think it's really controversial. The other one is a little controversial, and I think it's one that might surprise some people. But I've been kind of on this train since before spring ball, and then during spring, I've heard nothing but good things. I think Connor Galvin is going to make first team All Big 12 this year on this Baylor offensive line. Eric Mateos, Jeff Grimes trying to revamp the offensive line and this offense as a whole. And I think Connor Galvin's going to be a huge part of that at the left tackle position. I'm expecting a huge year from him, a huge jump, because frankly, he has been a little disappointing. Now, it's not all his fault, because on the offensive line, when 2 guys aren't doing their job, everyone looks bad. And so at times that's happened to him. But I think the talent is there. I think the skill set is there, and the frame is there for Connor Galvin to really emerge in this Baylor offense and as a kind of name that everyone knows in the Big 12.
So now looking back on my team, I actually did have Connor Galvin as well, along with Ebner and with Petrie, and I forgot that I put him there. But I did, so cool. And I also had Christian Morgan at safety, so I actually had 4 Baylor players.
Yeah, so I did have one more that I forgot. I did have Terrell Bernard and Jalen Petrie, but I also put Siaki Ika on the defensive line in there. So it was Galvin, Ebner, Ika, Petrie, and Bernard were the 5 that I had. Oh, my bad. There's one more that I think is kind of one that no one really talks about, but Isaac Power. Okay. I think he's going to be the All Big 12 punter. And this means Baylor's got to be pretty good. I mean, to have that many guys on the All Big 12 team, you got to be doing something right. So, yeah, that's the guys that I have added on there.
So, Grayson went from 3 to 7 players from Baylor on his All Big 12 team.
Is it 7 or 6?
Yeah.
6.
Whatever. 6.
6, yeah.
I ended up with 4. And I know that Christian Morgan's a wild card, but honestly, there's not like a lot of great safeties to choose from after Greg Eisworth. I mean, there's some good players, but I don't know. I just feel like defensive back-wise, there could be a little bit of a shakeup and a little bit of a turnover party back there this year. At least that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, and I can see that. I think, Colby Harvey Peel for Oklahoma State was kind of one that I was tough to not put in there for Oklahoma State, so I had him in there. But I can see a case for it. I mean, whether it's JT Woods or Christian Morgan, if you can force a bunch of turnovers, you have an opportunity to make the All Big 12 team, and they're going to have plenty of opportunities for that, especially with how good I expect Baylor's kind of front seven to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's what my think is. Just those guys are going to be super seniors, and they've been around a long time now. They should know the defense well, and yeah, I mean, I just think there's going to be some playmakers outside, and Ika was one that I thought of putting on there, but I was just like, I just ended up leaving it. I don't know. I debated on that one for a while, but yeah, I mean, Morgan's a little bit of a wild card prediction, but that's what this is supposed to be. It's not necessarily supposed to be just who all won last year. So some people saw Treston Ebner as returning special teams player of the year and went a different direction. Colby Harvey Peel, probably the smart pick. I went a different direction. So
it's not going to go chalk. It's just not. There's going to be guys that get in there that weren't expected to be in there. That simply is what's going to happen. So
I'm just going to go over the team as it is rather than go through one by one. If you want to interject at some point, go ahead. But I don't want to just list my, and yours piece by piece. So anyways, here was the way the media voted. Spencer Rattler, no surprise, quarterback. Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson at running back. Jeremiah Hall, like the only fullback to vote for, basically.
So I do want to just make one interjection on the running back. Bijan Robinson is very good, and I do think that there's a very good case for him to be the guy. But I think people are completely forgetting that Candy Brooks is back for Oklahoma.
Oh, for sure.
So I'll just make that quick statement. And they have Eric Gray, which probably mucks up the backfield a little bit.
And Deuce Vaughn's back for K-State, too.
Right.
So, I know why there's this hype, but there are some other pretty good players. You're right. Fullback spot. I mean, it's basically just let's give Oklahoma an award every year. I've said this a couple times. The last time I'll say it, but on the form when I filled it out, I wrote I think this would be better served as a hybrid H-back type position. It'd be so much easier for people to vote on this extra receiver / tight end / H-back / running back spot than the one fullback in the entire league, basically.
Just make it an athlete.
Yeah,
please.
It's so dumb.
So that we can put Deuce Vaughn on this team because he deserves to be. Yeah.
So, Deuce Vaughn's not first team preseason All Big 12 because there's not a spot to vote for him, but Jeremiah Hall is because he's the only guy people know to vote for.
And who's more valuable, Jeremiah Hall or Deuce Vaughn?
Yeah, it's not even a question. Yeah. I mean, this is not 1987. The fullback spot is not what it was, and, Tom Rathman's not walking through the door, but anyway, so Jeremiah Hall is the fullback. Xavier Hutchinson of Iowa State, Eric Ezenkama from Texas Tech, Marvin Mims from Oklahoma, the three wide receivers.
Yeah, one to watch at that position. I had two of the three right. I had Mims and Ezenkama at wide receiver, but the one who I think is going to be sneaky good this year is Brennan Presley out of Oklahoma State. He was very impressive in their bowl game, just an absolute playmaker in that offense. I think he's going to take over a huge role now that Tylan Wallace is gone.
Charlie Kohler, your tight end, no surprise there. If anybody voted for anybody else, then, that would, I like I said, I projected on Christian Morgan or someone like that. But, Charlie Kohler's the tight end. If you picked anybody else, it's just stupid.
You'd have to know something that other people don't. Maybe Oklahoma has a young guy that we're not talking about enough.
Yeah.
But, Kohler, he's an NFL guy. He's very good.
And even then, it would have to be like Kyle Hicks to, be the guy worth putting above Kohler.
Right.
He'd have to be some super-duper freshman stud. The offensive line, they do what these conferences do. It drives me insane. You talk about little pet peeves. This is certainly something that does not matter in the grand scheme of things, but it's a pet peeve. I hate teams, all-star teams, preseason teams, postseason teams that have more people on the team than actually play the sport at one time. So I don't like it when there's 7 offensive linemen on a first team because you never have 7 offensive linemen out there. Or 5 wide receivers, it's just I've seen teams. I think the Big 12 last year, there's 7 offensive linemen, 4 receivers, 2 tight. It's just there's 20 people on offense. So There are 6 guys on the offensive line for the Big 12. Trevor Downing of Iowa State, Colin Newell of Iowa State, Marquise Hayes and Wanye Morris of Oklahoma, Josh Sills of Oklahoma State, and Dawson Deaton of Texas Tech. This is pretty much my list outside of Dawson Deaton. The other 5 I think were the 5 that I had, but Deaton makes it 6. How about you?
Yeah, I actually had 2 switch. So Deaton, I had Connor Galvin in instead of. The other one was Wanya Morris, and that was probably more of an oversight on my end, but it was also because I really like a transfer that went to TCU this year, and that's Obina Eze out of Memphis. So I like him on the offensive line out of TCU as well. So those were my 2 switches, but Wanya Morris, he's going to be very, very impactful for that Oklahoma offensive line.
Defensive-wise, 4 D linemen, 5 defensive backs, and 4 linebackers. Old 13-man defense there. That's what I'm talking about. Will McDonald from Iowa State, Isaiah Thomas and Perry and Winfrey from Oklahoma, O'Shawn Mathis of TCU, and Dante Stills of West Virginia are the D linemen.
Yeah, so only 2 names that I did have in there that weren't on that list. I had Alfred Collins at Texas in there. I think he's going to be very impactful this season. He's kind of one of those dark horse picks where you're just kind of throwing a dart at a guy having a massive year and kind of rising up into that group. And then the other one was Siaki Ika. I also had Mathis, Winfrey, and McDonald. So went chalk there, but those 2 guys I added instead of the normals, which Dante still is hard to leave off the list. And then Isaiah Thomas at Oklahoma was, I guess, another pick that the media had.
Terrell Bernard, no surprise, linebacker, along with Mike Rose, no surprise, and Nick Benito of Oklahoma. Might have been the easiest position to vote for, quite honestly.
By far the easiest. Exact group I had as well.
Defensive backs, good to see Jalen Petries being acknowledged just in time for his final year. But he is one of the 5 defensive backs, along with Travius Hodges of TCU, Colby Harville, and, of course, Hodges from Midway. Colby Harville, Peel of Oklahoma State, Greg Eisworth, Iowa State, Deshaun Jamison, Texas, whatever.
That was the one.
Total homer pick. Yeah.
Come on. Are you kidding? So I have Jaron McPherson out of Kansas State as my other defensive back. I had the other ones right, but yeah, Deshaun Jamison, that is another one of those just projection picks, and that's fine. But it's just shocking that many people in the media feel like he was deserving of this spot when Jaron McPherson has been a really good player for the Wildcats for a few years now.
Yeah, but Deshaun Jamison's popular on social media and stuff since he was a high school recruit. I swear to God, there's not many that get all Big 12 based off being recruits more than Texas. I mean, seriously, it's always a name guy that was a 5-star or 4-star, and you're just like, why is he? It's like DeMarvion Overshown. We heard about him incessantly. Even though he was hurt half the time, it was just like, but when he was a recruit, he's rated. You know what I'm talking about, though? It's like always, I mean, I get it. They were rated highly at one point for a reason, but those ratings aren't always right. And some guys don't pan out. And that happens more often than not in Austin, quite frankly. But that's it. Talk about, no offense to the young man, but a name I'm tired of hearing is Deshaun Jamison at this point.
And I think Overshawn's better than Jamison.
And he is. And you're right, he is.
So he's not even the guy that I would have thought of putting on there, even though linebacker is a much tougher position. So the other things that were announced, of course, Offensive Player of the Year, Spencer Rattler. Defense Player of the Year, Mike Rose. Newcomer of the Year, Eric Gray. Is that how you voted as well, those 3?
Yeah, that's who I had.
Okay, so I have, this might be a little bit biased, but I did have Siaki Ika as Newcomer of the Year. Now, Eric Gray is probably going to be the flashier pick, the guy who's going to put up big numbers, but I think Ika is going to mean a whole lot to this Baylor defense. And as a new guy, I think he could really help this defense take another step. So that was the only switch I had.
So there's your Big 12 team. The preseason vote is in, and we'll hear more about this, I'm sure, when we arrive in Arlington tomorrow. And there'll be, probably some minor discussion about it here and there, but mostly it'll be to hear what Bob Bowlesby has to say, at least day one, and then what some of these teams have to say, and be interested to see what the setup is and whatnot. I think they probably described it somewhat in the email, but I have no idea what it's going to be like to interview these players. Is it just walk up to the podium like it was before? Do you have any idea?
I don't. I would bet that we're actually probably distanced a little bit.
I would think so.
And maybe, probably just rope distance, but that's going to be tough to ask questions and probably a little bit awkward to try to ask questions and also record it at the same time.
Yep. So some people have to get creative, but yeah, Oklahoma, your overwhelming favorite, 35 of 39 first place votes. The other 4 go to Iowa State. Oklahoma and Iowa State pretty much dominate the preseason All Big 12 team as well. So that's kind of the way it was expected to go, and that's the way that it is for right now. So, yeah, it was good to get those in and kind of have some of that normalcy. And Gabe Burkich was the kicker. I don't think I mentioned that officially, but yeah, that was kind of I thought about the kid from Texas, Dicker, as well. Mm-hmm. Those two I don't think you can really go wrong with, but yeah, Burkich did get the place kicker as well, voted on. So there you go, Spencer Rattler, Mike Rose, Eric Gray, your superlatives, and yeah, we'll see what the commish has to say tomorrow. So any other notes, Grayson, before we get into the mailbag this week?
No, we got a big mailbag. We got a lot of questions to get to, so let's go ahead and dive into that.
All right. T-Rex, what size lug nuts does a Jaguar use? Please answer by September the 18th.
I have no idea. I don't even know how to respond to that. I know that they play. Who's Baylor play on the 18th? Kansas. Yeah, at Kansas. Is there a Jaguar reference in there?
I don't know. Maybe he's just bragging about the kind of car he has. I'm not really sure what T-Rex is saying there, but we got a couple months to answer, it looks like. Yeah. So, yeah, can't tell you, T-Rex. You might want to look around before September the 18th and ask somebody who would know, but appreciate you. Keith98, forecast offensive stats for these players, assuming no injuries or suspensions. Sacks, tackles for loss, interceptions, blah, blah, blah. Ika, Petrie, Bernard, Doyle, team's defensive success will mostly be hinged on these 4 stud players.
Okay, so I guess let's start with Siaki Ika. I have him listed for and projected for 65 tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, couple forced fumbles. Don't really know about fumble recoveries. That's just such an odd stat to project. But right now, those are kind of the numbers I see for him, which would be very similar to what Bravion Roy did in 2019, but more sacks and more tackles for loss, which is something I expect from him to create a little more havoc in the backfield. Jalen Petrie, I got him listed for 75 tackles, 11 for loss, 4 sacks, 5 pass breakups, 3 interceptions and 2 forced fumbles. I think he's going to have a massive year again. It just seems like that star position, you're just put in the middle of a lot of plays. And so I think in return, he's going to make a ton of plays. But I don't think, I'm not projecting him for over 100 tackles, which is what he would have gotten to last year if they had played 12 games. So I'm not projecting him for that. And the main reason for that is because of the next guy that I'm about to talk about, which is Terrell Bernard, who I have projected for 115 tackles, 18 tackles for loss, 10 sacks, 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. I think he's going to have a massive year. I think he could lead this team in sacks. That would not surprise me at all. They use him in so many different ways, especially blitzing the quarterback, because his vision is just so elite as far as getting into the backfield. So, yeah, I'm probably expecting too much from Terrell Bernard, but if he's healthy the entire year, I think he's going to be absolutely dominant. And then Dylan Doyle, 70 tackles, 8 for loss, 3 sacks. So I think he'll have another nice year as well. But your comment at the end, team's defensive success will mostly be hinged on these 4 stud players. I actually don't agree with that. I think that these 4 players need to stay healthy because they need them on the field. But I think it's the other guys that are really going to determine whether this is a top 10 defense or not. Are JT Woods and Christian Morgan going to take that big step? Can Gabe Hall and TJ Franklin get on the field? Can they actually be healthy for a whole season? Can we get a whole season out of them? And then also Raleigh Tejada and Kalen Barnes, can they really step into being elite cornerbacks, especially Kalen Barnes? We saw Tejada have a good year last year, but can Barnes take that next step? And then can the depth hold up? I think those are the bigger questions that will define how good this defense is outside of just those 4 guys, because I think we know what Baylor's going to get from those 4.
Yeah, the secondary will be quite important. Quite important. Skim 234. What can you tell me about Maskua, Anyanwu, and Obi? They seem to have shot up the depth chart, but haven't read much about them. Pleasantly surprised to see their names listed prominently on Colts' projected depth chart.
Yeah, again, that's a projection that Colt released, not an official thing quite yet. But Maskew had a great spring, and one that I think Colt and I have mentioned a few times, that he's kind of that sneaky candidate to actually be the starter at one of those guard spots. I think he's very talented.
Well, Smokey dropped a couple notes on that yesterday, and he had talked to some folks, and Maskew was viewed as a future NFL player.
Yeah.
That there's a feeling he could be in the league, but that's really going to be up to him on whether he works hard enough and whether he, remains, disciplined and good and head down and work. Like if he does all the things he's supposed to and gets better as a player, there's a belief he could be an NFL guy. But there's some work to do there, basically. So just saying, yeah, there's definitely some thoughts that he's got some good to bring to this team.
Yeah, the talent is there. It all has to come together if he's going to be a starter for this team during the 2021 season. The other two guys you mentioned, the jack position is very interesting. I do think it's going to be a committee this year. I think that Ashton Logan's a good player, but in my opinion, I don't believe he is a difference maker at the position, whereas Anthony Nwanwu, Victor Obi, Tyrone Brown, I think those are guys to definitely watch as far as maybe bringing the ceiling of that group to another level. I think that those guys will be brought in, especially on passing down situations. They're very good pass rushers, which is something that I don't believe Ashton Logan really is. But I do think Logan will have a role just because of his knowledge of the defense and the fact that he's a veteran. I think he'll probably stay more calm in those tougher situations. And I also believe he's very good in coverage, possibly better than the other guys in coverage, which is a responsibility of the jack position. I also think you could see Garmin Randolph take some snaps at that spot as well, but only if it's as a pass rusher exclusively, because I think he'll get a lot of run at defensive end as well. So that's kind of where I'm at with that position. But yeah, it should not be surprising that Nwanwu and Obi have shot up the depth chart. I think Victor Obi has the highest upside of the group, and I have a lot of high expectations for him. I think he could be a very good pass rusher.
Yeah, that was a Matt Rule special, right?
Yeah.
Just seeing
Late in
the
the cycle.
potential. My school was as well, and you hear guys on the staff say that he could be an NFL guy. Victor Obi's got a lot of upside, even though he's super raw. And it's one thing, that Rule and them could identify, some raw talent and say, hey, we see the building blocks here to make this guy into a all Big 12 or a potential NFL player. So cool to have that kind of leftover talent on the roster, and I'm sure Aranda and them are chomping at the bit to develop, some of these guys, especially a guy like a Victor Obi. As a Watanejo Bear, I know a defined starting quarterback's preferable. What are the chances they rotate both Hannon and Zeno at the start of the season, similar to 2018? Would their differing skill sets make it too difficult to install a cohesive offense if they were splitting time?
I mean, I think that obviously if you have your starter, you should name the starter. If you really feel strongly about one over the other, then go with them. But if not, I mean, you have 2 games against Texas State and Texas Southern before you play Kansas, which really is a game you should win with either as well, to really, give it time to kind of figure out who the right guy is going forward. So I hope they both get reps unless they just absolutely know who the guy is. But I think that Gary especially could have a role in this offense regardless if he's the starting quarterback or not, just because of his ability to run, his ability to score touchdowns in the red zone. I just think it'd be a shame to keep him off the field even if he's not the starting quarterback, which obviously he still could be the starting quarterback as well.
Yeah, I mean, the risk you'd run is him getting hurt playing tight end or something on a play, and then you're suddenly going, okay, Blake Shapen, but he might not be your number 2 quarterback to begin with.
Right, and
so.
I'm thinking more as a running quarterback, not necessarily a tight, not different position, just maybe come in situationally, kind of like, Colin Klein did that a little bit before he was the starter, and Daniel Sams, and we've seen that,
I mean, we've seen Blake Bell, and then the ripoff that was Tyrone Swoops of the Belldozer. He went from Belldozer to 18-wheeler, like that wasn't a direct ripoff of Blake Bell. It absolutely was, but and I would have taken Bell over Swoops any day. But I'm thinking more of like the design plays we've seen from Gary in the past, that it's like, okay, he's coming in and it's obvious he's not throwing the ball in this play, and then he's out of play later, and it's just like, what was that? Like, I don't know. He's just been interjected at odd times, so I'm not a big fan of the rotating quarterback. I'm a big fan in letting a guy get in there, get his rhythm, and get some plays under his belt, and then just let him kind of fight it out a little bit. When we've seen rotating quarterbacks in the past, it's just like if you have a bad series, you might not see the field for another 30 minutes, and you got to watch another guy go out there and lead the offense instead of going out there and having your chance to get that one back or to do that, and so I don't know. I know in some situations it works. I don't really know the personalities well enough in that quarterback room or what Sean Bell's wanting to do to know whether that's a legit option or not. But, you definitely want to get Gary as involved as you can. I mean, he's a super athlete, and, you got him on the team for a reason. So, find a way to use him if he's not going to be the starting quarterback. Let's see. Thank you, Zuwatanejo. Joe Bear, which of the following scenarios would most significantly alter BU's football season to the upside? A, beating Iowa State, B, beating Texas, or C, beating both West Virginia and Oklahoma State?
Beating both West Virginia and Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
You need wins on your resume. You get two of them, two big ones like that. Yeah, that's definitely the answer.
Yeah, I'd take two over any one. So, I'll go with C there. Which of the following scenarios would most significantly alter BU football season to the downside? A, being blown out by Iowa State, B, losing to K-State, or C, barely beating Texas Tech? Thanks for the quality work, guys. Best regards. Well, thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
Well, winning any Big 12 game, I don't care how you did it, is successful. So it's definitely not barely beating Texas Tech. I'm going to go with losing to Kansas State just because it's coming at the end of the year, and that could be a sign that maybe Baylor's not a bowl team, or maybe they're struggling to reach that level this season with one game to go against Texas Tech.
That's the thing, is they're not going to be able to screw around too much. Like, they've got some gimme wins in the first part of the schedule, but they don't have a whole lot after that. And so they're going to have to really win those first few games and be in like a 4 or 5 win position by the time like the midway point hits to have a chance to go to a bowl game. I mean, honestly, because, if they screw around and they go like 3-2 to start the year or something like that, there's not a guarantee there's 3 wins left in that back 7. You know what I mean? Like there should be, but you don't have Kansas late in the year. You have them early. So that's that early must win along with your non-con outside of BYU. In that BYU game, I would think Baylor will be favored because of what they lost, but you never know, and that's in the middle of the Big 12 schedule, so that's weird. Take any win you can get, no matter how you can get it. So the most significantly altering them downside-wise would be, I think losing to K-State, because that's one of those flip games they're going to probably have to have. Thank you, Joe. Yankee Bear, what's your take on the guys left off the 2 deep from the offensive and defensive lines, Valentine, Ellis, Landry, etc.?
Yeah, I think Valentine is competing for a job. I would not rule him out. I still think the talent is there. I think he had a nice spring, really elevated his game. So he's still competing for one of those guard spots. I would not rule him out.
But he needs to kind of put it all together
he does.
now. You got to kind of put it all together.
But it's the same everyone we talk about for that guard spot, Khalil Keith, Micah Mascua, Giancarlo Valentine. I mean, there are so many guys that you can, Xavier Newman even, can just one of them put it together? Just one. They just need one of them
I think so.
to put it together. That's it.
Just need more time.
Yeah, more time, right? There is no more.
There's
no
really
more
not.
time.
I mean, there's not for Xavier Newman. There's not for Valentine. I mean, there's really not for some. I mean, Mascua, sure, or somebody, Gavin Byers, sure, but for these other guys, no. They've already been on campus for like 4 and 5 years.
Right. And then the other ones you mentioned, Elijah Ellis, I think he's competing for the job. I know Casey Phillips, Gavin Byers, Elijah Ellis are competing for that right tackle spot. I think Byers is going to end up being the guy, but I know if Casey Phillips can take a step, that would be ideal because he's an older guy, a little more seasoned, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So I think Ellis is still in that competition for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if there's an or, with him, Phillips, and Gavin Byers at right tackle. That would not shock me at all. Josh Landry will have a role, but I'm not shocked not seeing him in the 2 deep. I just not at all. Not stunned.
What is really going on with the teasing of Patton and Brown on social media? So you're talking about Jeremy Patton and
Derek Brown.
Derek Brown. Have they made up the 2 recruits? Have they made up their minds, or are they just playing one side, or are they just having fun while still undecided?
They have not made up their minds, and I think right now people are reading too much into every single thing that they post because Baylor's pretty much, they've filled up a huge portion of their class, and so I think people are just really examining everything that they post. Now, they are going to the pool party on July 30th in Austin at Texas, and then Derek Brown said he's making his decision on July 31st. So that timeline is definitely something to think about, but I do not think they've made up their mind. I think Baylor's still squarely in it for both of them.
That pool party would be a turnoff to me at this point in life. At 17, though, I'm sure I would have enjoyed it. But, now I'm thinking of just, a bunch of people around a pool, and, I'm just I don't want nothing to do with that.
Right.
But if you're 17, I totally get it on a college campus and whatnot.
It's been a hit for them. For whatever reason, recruits have responded really well to it. So, we'll see. But, again, I think that people are reading way too much into everything that a 17-year-old is tweeting. And I don't believe anything he's really put out there is really worrisome as far as Baylor is concerned.
Yeah, I did notice he had put his header or something's like burnt orange something or whatever. And
he posted a picture in a Baylor hat the other day. He's just doing his thing.
This is why I just I see these things and I just move on because I'm not going to try to break it down. But yeah, I get it. Let's see. How far are you projecting the men's basketball team to go next year, and what will it take for them to repeat as national champions?
I think they'll be a top 10 team, possibly an Elite Eight appearance next year. They could make the Final Four. I think the tournament is it's just one of those things where it's so unpredictable. So it's really hard to say, okay, yeah, they're going to make it to the Final Four again or win a championship again because things have to go right a lot of times for you to get there. But I do think they are an Elite Eight Final Four caliber team with the talent they have on the roster. I think they could make a run to that point. But in order to do that, I think in order to repeat as national champs, I think that means Kendall Brown is a lottery pick, and Matthew Meyer, James Akinjo, or Adam Flagler, one of them is a top 3 player, no-brainer in the conference, in my opinion. That's the only way that I think they repeat as national champs.
Yeah, all that, and I'd say, definitely top 10 to start the season. And Elite Eight-ish, I could see that. I'm not ready to talk Final Fours again. That's rare air. That's not something you just, we did it, we'll do it again. And it's no, it's a little more difficult than that, especially when you lose as much as Baylor did. I don't care how much talent you got. You're not quite North Carolina and Duke and all them, just yet of being kind of accustomed to the, big mass departures of talent and just turning right around and reloading it. But, hey, they're as set up as well as they've ever been. Not down the team, but just Final Four, I'm not ready to go all the way in on that just yet. Let's see. Thank you, Yankee. Scotty B., the Baylor King. How would you rank the top 5 defenses in the Big 12 this year?
Iowa State, Baylor, TCU, Oklahoma State.
Yeah, sounds about right. I think West Virginia's will be pretty good. I don't know about Texas really just yet. I think Texas Tech's defense will be better than their offense, but I don't know how great either will be. Yeah, but no, the ones you said sound about right. That's who I'm expecting to really be good on defense as well. Let's see. With the Summer Olympics coming up next week, if you had to choose a Summer Olympic sport to play for fun or win any medal, what would it be and why?
100 meter in track for sure. That's the coolest event. I think that is so cool. And it's also extremely cool that Trayvon Bromell, a Baylor alum, is a guy who's really the favorite to win it. It would be unbelievable. I'm not sure the last time an American won the 100 meter. I think you probably got to go all the way back to, Carl Lewis maybe? Was he the last one to win?
I don't know the last one.
I think I don't know that for sure, but it would just be really cool if Trayvon could.
I don't know. I feel like Justin Gatlin or somebody like that's probably
no, because he was in Usain Bolt's.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Bolt won every year that he was in it. So unless I'm just trying to think. I don't think Michael Johnson won in the 100, did he? I know he ran in the 200. But yeah, it would just be a really cool honor if Trayvon Bromell were able to win that. There's something magical about the 100 meters, something that. To see that speed on display is just something so unique. So I would love it if I could, if I had that kind of speed. But unfortunately, I'm more of a 4.9 guy in the 40, so not quite the elite level speed.
Yes, it says Carl Lewis is the last American, but this also has Usain Bolt in 2012 as the last entry. So I guess I don't know.
Well, because he won in 2016 too. But what year was Carl Lewis?
80-something. 88 was
88.
Carl Lewis.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So
30 years.
Yeah, it's been a while. 100 meters would be a cool race to win. That's the top Olympic event, and that's the one that I would likely go with as well because I wouldn't want to do the team thing. If we're talking about having, the glory of the gold medal and all of that. I mean, to do it with your team, I'm sure, is pretty cool, but I would want to have that podium all to myself if in an event like that, and 100 meters would certainly apply. So, yeah, that'd be a good one. And I don't know, there's not really another race specifically like that one that stands out that much that's individual. So, yeah, I'd probably go 100 meters as well. Let's see. Thank you, Scotty. Rusty Shack, what is the most important question about each quarterback on the staff's board? Not conventional 365 narrative or fan meme that must be answered to secure and enhance his standing, A, this fall, and B, during his time at BU.
So for Gary, for me, I think he's got to prove that he can make all the throws necessary to give this offense a real ceiling instead of just a floor. Because right now, I think it's more of a floor play, kind of what he can bring to the table with his running ability and ability to move the chains that I know everyone's really excited about. And that's great, and that can win you games. But I do think it cuts off the ceiling for the offense a little bit if that is the case. So he's got to prove some things throwing the football a little bit more. Jacob Zeno, can he avoid the pass rush and create more opportunities to utilize his arm, even if there is not elite blocking in front of him? Essentially, he's got to get better moving around in the pocket, getting outside the pocket, and being able to make throws on the run. I think decision-making, a lot of people are questioning that after the spring game, but that really wasn't a huge thing that happened throughout spring ball. It just happened in that game. So I don't know that I would read too much into that, but the pocket presence, ability to escape the pass rush is definitely something that he has got to work on if he's going to be an elite quarterback at Baylor. Blake Shapen, he's far behind in the quarterback battle behind these two, which was something I was anticipating. It felt like it was going to be Gary versus Jacob for a long time. I know a lot of people had Shapen as kind of a dark horse, but he's got to grow. And he's a young guy. He's a guy who has a lot of capabilities, but he's just got to get better and better as a passer, as a leader, and that's fine. He's a young guy. Kyron Drones, his big thing is he's got to learn the nuances of the quarterback position. He's got to be able to become a, how do you put this, just kind of a teacher of the game and a guy who can really enhance his ability by doing that. You know, being able to kind of see the field and go out there and throw the ball around, that's great. But you got to be able to read defenses, and you got to be able to know every single position, in my opinion, as a quarterback. So he's got to get there, but I will say this. Everyone who's just kind of anointing Zach Pyron as the next Baylor quarterback, they better watch out, because Kyron Drones is a very, very good player and a guy who just oozes talent, but he needs time.
Is that what people are doing now?
I think they are. I think everybody's just penciling in Pyron. And listen, Pyron's great, and he's showing it. He showed it at Elite 11. Very good quarterback. Sean Bell recruit. But Kyron Drones, I'm telling you, there's a lot of talent there. And I know the Baylor staff is very, very excited about what he could do in the future.
So, shoot, man, Jacob Zeno hadn't even completed 3 passes yet, and we've already moved on to the second guy after him as the next guy at quarterback. I mean, think about that for a second. This shows you how silly it can be sometimes.
The third guy after him, if you're moving to Pyron, he's got Shapen.
That's right, yeah. Zeno was the man after 2 completions, literally 2 completions, and a year and a half later, he's, been passed over twice already.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Yeah. But, hey, it means they've got good quarterback competition, I suppose. At least that's what you hope. Travel Bear, your thoughts on the depth and overall strength on the defensive front. Apu is a game changer, but he can't play every down. Seems there's not much room for error in the event of injury. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Do you feel in general the starting unit can bring enough pressure on their own without having to send extra pass rushers? Also, any lesser-known names to look for this season who might emerge as a star at defensive end? Thanks as always for the insight. Well, thank you, Travel Bear.
Yeah, I mean, Gabe Hall, TJ Franklin, Apu Ika, Chidi Obanaya. Those are the 4 that I have a lot of confidence in, if healthy. Obviously, that's a big part of it as well. But I like those 4, and I think they can be very, very effective in the Big 12. I think Garmin Randolph is a guy to watch as a pass rusher. I love his game. Coming out of high school, I compared him to DeForest Buckner, which is a heck of a comparison because DeForest is an all-pro type guy. So we'll see if Garmin can turn into that. But I do think he has a lot of qualities that they like at the defensive end spot, and he's continued to put put on weight, which is a great sign. But I think the Jacks are where you're also going to see a lot of pass rushing with Victor Obi and Anthony and Ngannou. I think you also see it from that position as well. So those are kind of the guys I would watch.
Yeah, I'd love to see some guys play as much as I hear their names. Gabe Hall's, one of them. Certainly Chidi. Chidi did play a lot last year, but we just been hearing about the build-up for him, and this would be the year to really put it all together. Obi, obviously, is a young guy they like a lot with a lot of potential. I mean, so on and so forth. I mean, there's options, but a lot of this year is going to be guys proving things and proving that they can handle playing, snap after snap after snap, or handle being a starter, handle being the man to plug that hole. And, it's all there, but can they put it all together? And that's the big question. This is from Bear 90. Any word on the third women's assistant coach? No, haven't heard anything on that front. Not sure what the holdup in the announcement is or what's going on there, but haven't heard anything on that front. Nothing to pass along right now. And Stifler's mom, how physical do you think this team will be? Has Vic Valoria been here long enough to get this team where he wants it? I'm really hoping it shows on the O-line.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic about the defense showing a lot of physicality. I think Vic Valoria is going to continue that trend, but they were physical last year, I felt like. They just simply were hit hard by injuries, and that really kind of set them back a little bit, even though they had a very productive year, in my opinion. As far as the offensive side, they need to be more physical, especially the offensive line. I think Vic Valoria will have done a good enough job to get them to the point where they can be physical and can move people and actually look like a unit that is angry at times, which we did not see at all last year. I think there will be some improvements. Now, is Vic at the point where I think he would say, oh, this is exactly where we need to be, it will never get better than this? No, I think there's still a lot that he wants to do, especially grooming the young guys to become those next starters in the next few years.
Yeah, I think they're going to be far better off than they were last year. I think we'll see some definite change just with our eyes when you look across the team when they hit the field for game number one. Not like Sean Oakman suddenly walking around out there or anything like that. Just, I think we'll see some guys look just a lot healthier than they did last year, a lot more toned, firm, muscled up than they were. Because, there were some soft-looking guys out there last year with the lack of build-up, and they did get out-physicaled more than they had in quite some time. Matt Rule made that his, defining thing. His trademark was being the most physical team on the football field, and they were not that last year. They were in some ways, but certainly not offensively in any way, shape, or form. Look at the receivers, look at the O-line, look at the running backs. There's definitely room to be a lot more physical, and I think Valoria will provide some of that, and then some of that will just be maturation and just guys getting bigger and stronger and more confident. But I would expect to see a little bit of a step up there. So thank you, Stifler's mom, for the question to close us out this week, and thanks all of you, Bear 90, Travel Bear, Rusty, Scotty, Yankee, Joe, Zwatanejo, Skim, Keith, and T-Rex for your questions or comments in the mailbag this week as well. And Grayson, anything before we head on out this week and close it down before Big 12 Media Days?
No, very excited about Big 12 Media Days coming up, so stay locked in on SicEm365.com and on the radio side as well, SicEm365 Radio from 3 to 6. I've heard a little rumor that y'all are going to be live at Big 12 Media Days, so that will be a really cool addition, I think.
Yeah, we'll be there from 3 to 6 on both days, and we'll have interviews and all that other stuff that comes with it as we typically would. So, we'll have that, and then we'll have some people there as well, just, going to the different interviews and whatever the setup's going to be. I have no idea what it's going to be like. But whatever's going on, we'll have coverage of it. I can assure you of that. So, until next time, I want to thank Armstrong and Jack for their work behind the scenes. I want to thank all of you once again who sent in questions or comments to the mailbag. And a big thank you to all of you that just listen on a regular basis. Definitely spread the word about not only the podcast, but also the premium section of SicEm365.com. That's where you can go directly and just through being a member, support what we do here and how we do it and everything else. So thank you to all of you who have already done so. And that'll bring us to a close. So until next time, be on the lookout for a lot of Big 12 Media Days news starting on Wednesday and lasting through Thursday. And I'm sure there'll be some stuff trickling into the weekend as well. But stay up to date as always, on SicEm365.com. Thanks to our great sponsors. It's been the Bearcast on SicEm365 Radio.